Hello and welcome to the Pinwheels pregame show. Just a reminder, tonight, 7 o'clock, Zoe and Fids going to be doing a live stream on the big show for Pinwheels and Ivy, watching the Crosstown Cup and doing some live reactions. So make sure you tune in for that. Also, reminder, scan the QR code, get yourself a shirt. And support the show. They got White Sox. It's homage. They got the White Sox shirts, Bears shirts, Bulls shirts, you name it. They got it. They even got Cubs shirts, I believe, on there. So, whatever team you like in Chicago, scan that QR code, get yourself a shirt. So, big news of the day. Last night, Crosstown Cup resumed against the Chicago Cubs. This is kind of our World Series, the Sox fans this year. I mean, let's be honest. We're not playing in any big games. These games against the Cubs, probably the biggest games we're going to have as far as atmosphere and environment goes for the rest of the season. And it was a very typical White Sox way to lose the game. You get Luis Robert back. So finally, some positive momentum for a team that has not won a game since June 21st, I believe. I think it was June. It's been a while. Long story short, it has been, or excuse me, not June, May 20th, 21st. That's the last time the Sox won a game, May 21st. So, it's been bad. There's not a whole lot of reasons to watch this team on a nightly basis, but this is one you can kind of get a little bit juiced up about. But even this year, because usually the Crosstown Cup, it's a rivalry, whether some fans want to admit it or not. And it's true. White Sox are kind of the little brothers in town. We get it. Your attendance jokes won't hurt us at this point. We already know the team's bad. But even this year, the rivalry doesn't seem the series didn't have as much juice because the Cubs are playing terribly too, quite frankly. Like, their bullpen stinks. Their offense has been struggling for a little bit of a stretch there. They're trying to figure their stuff out too. So both teams headed in the wrong direction. White Sox arguably they are the worst team in baseball. So not nearly as exciting, but it's such a typical White Sox way to lose. You finally get some excitement. You build that 5-0 lead. Luis Robert hits after you build that 5-0 lead, bullpen completely blows it. Then Luis Robert gets the lead back with a dramatic home run, and that ball was tattooed. That was one of the hardest hit balls I've seen all season. So good to see that he's healthy back on the field. But then they still find a way to blow it by having their newly called up prospect, Duke Ellis. He gets picked off at second base after the bullpen blows the lead again. So not really Ellis's fault there, but that was kind of a key moment in the game. So that's what I want to talk about, is this moment with Duke Ellis. So for those of you who haven't heard the name Duke Ellis before, he was in Double-A Birmingham. This guy is 26 years old. He initially was drafted out of a community college in Texas by the Padres, I believe it was. He decided to stay in college, played for the Longhorns a little bit, did a pretty good job, ended up on the White Sox, and the guy is something the White Sox have been needing. He plays really good defense. This year, he spent the bulk of his time left field and center field, has yet to make an error, and he is fast. He leads the Southern League in stolen bases. He was 33 for 34 in stolen base attempts. So I kind of like the White Sox, calling this guy up. We saw him do this with Ramos earlier because it's a lost season anyway. Get these guys a taste of Major League action, because now you get back down to Double-A. You're more motivated to try and get back there. You kind of know what it takes. This obviously a huge opportunity for him in a really big series in front of a lot of people. So I was very happy the White Sox called up this guy, Duke Ellis. And, the Double-A team right now in Birmingham, quite frankly, that's the most watchable product in this organization. They got a lot of exciting guys between Thorpe and Uriarte, who they got through trades. Those guys look like studs. Duke Ellis, earlier this year, I was listening to a podcast with Sergio Santos, White Sox Talk podcast, former White Sox closer, Sergio Santos. He's the manager down there, and that guy gets it. That's what a really good developmental manager looks like, Santos. Just kind of go off on a little tangent. Listening to him, I was really impressed. He's bilingual, which definitely helps. I think it's a little bit overblown, but it definitely helps connecting to everyone in the clubhouse. B, he was an outfielder that was converted to a pitcher coming up. So for developing players, he kind of knows that struggle of coming up to the major leagues and being on both sides of the coin, having to learn how to hit and play defense and then converting over to a pitcher. I think that really helps. And it's not like he was some all-star caliber MLB player, which also helps. He knows the struggles of being a day-to-day MLB guy and what it takes to stay in the show. So I really like what they got going down there. They play hard for him. And his big thing is look, we're trying to go out and win the championship down there, but really I just want all these guys to get a shot at the show. And so the White Sox kind of giving some of these players like Ramos and Ellis a taste of the MLB action. And I am all for it, rewarding him for a good season. He told a really great story on that podcast where they were playing in a game and there was a shallow pop fly hit to left field. Ellis is on third base. This is a fly ball that like 80% of players would not even think about tagging up on. Ellis beats it out and scores the winning run. Birmingham Barons win the game. So look, they bring him up. And Pedro, I thought, made a good move. They brought him in as a pinch runner late in that game with a runner at first. They bring in Ellis. His goal, steal second base, steal third base, make it easy for him. So he steals second, gets in a good position. They also told him, hey, we want you to steal third. And I like that strategy too, because now, while stealing third, obviously a lot tougher, especially in that situation. If you've watched the White Sox offense at all this season, they can't hit with runners in scoring position. They can't really hit in clutch moments. They can't hit, period. That's not a very good hitting team. So why not get the guy to third? So where now all you need to score him is a ground ball or even a shallow fly ball. You're giving the guy a chance to score. So he gets a big lead, little over aggressive. He gets picked off. You know what? Mistakes like that happen, especially for a rookie. And I felt really bad for him too, because like usually this is this type of dumb base running mistake you get yelled at for being on the White Sox because they make a lot of them. But the guy was trying to make a play. He was being aggressive. He was doing what was asked of him. And he's a rookie, big spot there, made a mistake. And afterwards, what I really liked, he owned it. He's like, yeah, you know what? Now I learned it's not going to happen again next time. I really respect that from him. So, you know, I think he gets some more chances. I don't see him getting a ton of playing time outside of some late defensive replacement stuff with the Sox. And then, you know, as that pinch runner, but I think he's kind of, he almost reminds me of like a Billy Hamilton in a way where if you were a championship contender, a Duke Ellis is a kind of a nice piece to have on that bench just to come in if you had enough depth and a better team. This White Sox team isn't it, where you're wasting roster spots. But like if say they were contenders, you had a pretty good outfield. That's a nice piece to have for a contending team. Come in late in the game, steal a couple bases. So he will learn from that. I hope he gets some more opportunities before they just send him down. You see a lot of times these rookies will make mistakes early and they kind of get in Pedro's doghouse and we don't see him come up again. So hopefully he bounces back. I hope they give him another shot, but it was sad. It was kind of sad to see the game end like that, especially for a guy like Duke Ellis. That I was hoping that I was hoping he'd be the hero there, but it is what it is. That's the White Sox for you this season. For the Cubs, I think this is a good get-right series for them. You know, we had John Triffin talking about how, we just seem to be catching teams at the wrong time. Now, we caught the Cubs at the perfect time, especially because Shota, their best pitcher, he hadn't pitched in 11 days coming into that game. That is a lot of rest. And I get what the Cubs were trying to do with Shota is, hey, look, we think we're going to be in the playoffs and contention. We're trying to keep him fresh for as long as we can. He's been pitching in Japan. You know, we're going to kind of monitor his workload. But coming back after 11 days, that is still a lot of time to be off. So the White Sox kind of caught up at the perfect time. Cubs aren't playing good baseball. They still find a way to blow that game. So this is a good get-right series for the Cubs, kind of build some confidence with a playoff-like atmosphere. The Wrigley crowds are always pretty good, but like there's always a little extra juice when the Sox come to town, like it or not. Let's talk about Pedro Grifol a little bit. I really don't want to talk about Pedro. I mean, we all know he probably should be fired at this point, but I think it's pretty clear he's starting to run out of time. We talked about it, how he was calling out the players last week, where it kind of seemed to me where he was just kind of pressing buttons because he's running out of options. Now, an interesting thing that came out of it, and the reason we bring up Pedro, is there was an interesting article by Ken Rosenthal in the New York Times that came out this week. And in that article, Rosenthal said that he talked to an anonymous player in the White Sox who wanted to be anonymous, obviously, so he could speak freely about Pedro. But he said the biggest issue that he had with Pedro's comments, where he said, if you don't recall, he was after this loss on Memorial Day where they were facing Kyle Brandish, he finished fourth in the AL Cy Young voting, very good pitcher for the Orioles. He shut the White Sox down, had a no-hitter going through 7. Pedro comes out after the game, was like, the team looks fucking flat. And, you know, from the players, it's like, well, it's easy to look flat when you're facing a guy that's, you know, shoving against us. Like, we're trying to get hits. And so this one anonymous player came out and was like, I wish he wouldn't have made those public comment, because they had a closed door team meeting where he basically had said the same thing. But he's like, okay, fine. We get the message. But then he came out and made it public, and that irked a lot of players too. And we already saw Corey Lee, who wasn't anonymous, saying like, hey, you know, he has his opinion. We got ours too. So that was kind of telling. Good to see you too, Andy, in the chat. Appreciate you hopping on, and all the rest of you listening here. The Pinwheels pregame show every Wednesday at noon. If this is your first time joining us, we appreciate you hopping on. But so he made a lot of players receiving some pushback from Pedro, and I think it's kind of one of these things now where Pedro knows it's over. His time is limited. Now, not all of this is Pedro's fault. The team's not good. The team is not good. Let's call for what it is. It's yeah, and honestly, Andy brings up a good point here too, because like you could see like when he was coming out of that press conference making these comments, it did seem fake. It totally seemed fake. It seemed like one of those things where he's trying to send a message to these players, doesn't really know how to. As I mentioned, he's pushing buttons and just kind of panicking. But ultimately, this is going to come down to Jerry, because Jerry's the one that's going to be signing off on all of these moves. So he's not getting fired unless Jerry says so. And that's a big reason why I think you saw Pedro, who is desperate to hang on to his job, kissing his ass last week, talking about how nobody wants to win more than Jerry, which if you're a White Sox fan, you already know how that is true. And, you know, Southside Circus here, perfect name for this too. It really is a circus. You can't really see a bright future with this team as long as Jerry is owning them. It's true, because like what other manager would keep their job at this point? There's not. And you have a capable guy as your bench coach, Charlie Montoya. And Chris Katz did not hire Pedro. He's got no affiliate. He inherited Pedro. He could easily be like, this is my guy. I'm going to get my own guy. Ultimately, it's going to come down to how the White Sox feel that Pedro can handle some of these young prospects that are coming up. And if this is an environment that he has created where some of these players can thrive, and that's going to be their determination, not ours. We're not in the clubhouse. We can't really tell. But from the outside looking in, it sure as hell doesn't look like it, because it doesn't look like any of these players in the clubhouse respect him. I do still think they're trying. They're just not a good team. There's not a whole lot of talent. So it's not even about the win-loss record at this point, which is bad, admittedly. But again, that's not really all Pedro's fault, because there's only so much he can do with this shitty roster. I thought that move to put in Duke Ellis last night as a pinch runner was a good move. The bullpen's just not very good, though. Like there's only so many moves he can make where it's just like these players just aren't that. I mean, they don't have there's not a ton of talent on this team, unfortunately. But, ultimately, like I said, decision's going to come down to, do they think Pedro can develop some of these prospects? Is this a good environment for them to learn and grow the rest of the season? That's going to determine whether he sticks around till the end of this year or not. Because I'm pretty sure, I think the writing's on the wall, he would probably get fired afterwards, unless, it's Jerry's team. He wants to surround himself by yes men. Ultimately, every decision in this organization, that's why you see a lot of these guys kind of in the White Sox family, like Rick Hahn or Kenny Williams. Like Kenny Williams, instead of firing him, they just promote him and move him to a new job and reshuffle the deck. Rick Hahn was the same way. He kept his job way longer than he probably should have. If Jerry likes you, you're going to stick around longer than you should. So that'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. Another interesting note that came out of this week, and this doesn't really affect the White Sox currently, but it's kind of another thing just with the state of baseball in general. Former White Sox player has been suspended for a year for gambling. Jose Rodriguez, you might know him as Popeye. That was his nickname. He only appeared in one game for the White Sox. It was as a pinch runner. He did score a run, but he has yet to get an official major league at bat. He's going to have to wait a little bit longer, and now it's going to be a bit more of an uphill battle for him, because he got suspended for a year along with 5 other players. The harshest penalty was San Diego Padres utility player, Tucupita Marcano. I think that's how they say his name. Apologies to him, but he received a lifetime ban from the MLB for gambling. Now, Rodriguez, and this is where it was interesting. I thought it was kind of funny. They were listing what he had bet on. So where he's currently a part of the Phillies organization, but he got suspended for what he did while he was still with the White Sox organization. He placed 31 bets, 3 college baseball games, 28 MLB-related bets. And this is all while he's still under contract with the White Sox. Now, according to the MLB, those wagers included bets involving the White Sox while he was still assigned with the AA affiliate Birmingham. And the bets were on the over-under for how many runs the White Sox would score in a game. I would imagine he probably hammered the under, like most smart bettors would when you're facing teams placing the White Sox. He bet a total of $749.09 on baseball, and then $724.09 was MLB-related bets. His average bet, just over $25, which often included multi-leg parlays. And the MLB says he never appeared in any of the games he bet. But I just found it kind of funny. He's hammering parlays. A lot of them had to do with the White Sox over-under on that. So it just kind of, you know what? I don't know what all these sports leagues expect, because you're getting into the bed with all these gambling companies, and the MLB, you've seen it the same thing too. You see this whole thing unfolding with Jonte Porter, where, you're going to be promoting and literally on the courts on the fields between every intermission. You can't listen to a White Sox broadcast without hearing Schriffen have to break down, oh, hey, you bet $100 on this player to hit a home run, you can win this many with their points bet. It is all over. If you're watching a game now, you can't escape the gambling ads. And it's gotten to the point, too, where like they shove it down your throat so much. How do you expect these players not to want to be involved? Every time you turn on the TV, gambling, gambling, gambling. You cannot just sit down and watch a game anymore as a casual fan without having all these gambling ads shoved in your face. Half these leagues are sponsored by them. All these programmings, it's about best bets of the day, who to bet on, all half these sports channels. You look at the little ticker at the bottom of the screen, they got the lines for all of them. So you're expecting all these players to just like, hey, you know what? We're promoting all of this while you're around it, but you can't participate in any of the fun. Well, what do you expect? This is going to happen a lot more. And it's starting a dangerous precedent. And one of these days, you're going to see players throwing games, which I think we just saw with Jonte Porter. If you saw, he said if you're kind of reading into that whole issue with the Raptors, I know it was a baseball show, but kind of fits the same thing with the gambling. He was accused of like placing bets on prop bets where he was in, and a lot of them were unders. And they were showing a clip where he was trying to bank a three and clearly miss it. And it banked in, and you could see the look on his face. I've never seen someone less happy to make a three. He was like, ugh. And reportedly, too, he was in so much gambling debt, he was placing these huge bets on himself to throw these games so he could try and get out of it. Well, that's going to happen a lot more with a lot of these leagues. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You're going to see this happen a lot more. And they did it to themselves. It's going to ruin the sport. I'm calling it's like all this game. It's too much. It's too much, too fast. The gambling is it's going to infiltrate all these sports. And you're going to see a lot more problems like this. Unfortunately, I'm afraid, no matter how harsh they make these penalties. Some are very hypocritical, too. I got no issue if these players bet on it. Well, actually, I guess you get the inside info, too. But if they're not playing in the game or their team they're affiliated with isn't, like, I don't really see the issue. But, that's kind of the balance you got to face with a lot of these teams. It's kind of a double-edged. So we'll see. But I found that kind of interesting. Old Popeye still making headlines, even though he's not with the White Sox. And he has yet to get his first major league at bat. Might be a little bit tougher right now. Let's go into some other stuff. Now, as we mentioned, this team hasn't won a game since May 21st, so it's already an embarrassment. But there were a couple of things this week that made it even more embarrassing to be a White Sox fan, if that was possible. And usually this team's bad, and I stand by them because they're typically bad. Just kind of what you grow up. You grow up learning, hey, your team's bad, but you're proud to be a Southsider. You just root for the team. But, man, there was three things this week that really – I was like, what are we doing here? So the first one let's talk about is Tommy Pham. The whole Milwaukee series was an embarrassment. They got swept once again. They blew a couple leads in the process. These are three things from the Milwaukee series that I saw. So first off, we'll go to Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham, if you didn't see the play, there was a game on the finale of that series. He's trying to score the tying run late in that game. He gets gunned down at home. William Contreras, he's all fired up. The Brewers are celebrating because they just held on to the lead. They probably saved the game. They know they're going to win. So he's walking back to his bench, says something to Tommy. Tommy didn't appreciate it. He barks back. Looked like he was about to fight him. John Schriffen's all fired up. We'll get to him in a second. But so they have to hold him back. And then Tommy Pham, he's walking back out and he's like shadow boxing. It's like, so initially watching this play, I could see where, like, from the angle they initially showed, you could see where, okay, I get where Tommy's coming from. Like, it looked like he was blocking the catcher. Contreras was blocking the plate. He was out by a mile. They're rubbing it in his face. Whatever. I can get where you'd be a little irked. And we don't know exactly what he said. However, if you take another angle from where, like, the behind home plate, I wish I had it up. Usually I'd have the PowerPoint here. I don't have the clip for you, so you can look it up. But if you look at the angle he's running, he is going directly out of his way. Like any base runner knows, when you're making that like turn, you're usually trying to either because he had a lane to the back, so you're trying to slide to avoid the tag, or if you're like rounding third base, you're taking a wide turn. Now he wasn't on this particular play, but there was a lane on the outside of the base path. Tommy Pham goes out of his way to go into the grass almost, taking a direct route where it looked like he had one thing on his mind, and that was making contact with Contreras. If they didn't have the rule where you couldn't barrel into the catcher, Contreras was getting smoked because Pham had like the barrel of the gun pointed down on him. Like went completely, it was not an efficient route. Didn't even try to avoid the tag. And I think he wanted to run into him, but thought better of it. That's why he had that kind of half-ass awkward slide where he made some contact. So I would imagine now looking at that angle, I'm on Contreras' side for that one. It's like, hey, man, like I gave you a lane. You just tried to run into me. And also, like, if I'm going to celebrate Tim Anderson celebrating a home run and bat flipping, then I am fine with the opposing team celebrating if they make a play on us. That was a big moment in the game. Let them be fired up. If it was our guys, I would be fired up and have no problem with that. So the whole thing looked a little like it's like really we're picking a fight about this. Tommy Pham probably started that whole incident. And now listen, before I get into this, Tommy Pham's no fake tough guy. He's not. And I do respect him for the fact that he is not afraid to speak his mind. He stands on business. He's been stabbed at strip clubs multiple times. I don't know if that makes you tough, but clearly he has some street credibility. He can kick people's asses. Just ask Jock Peterson. It was over fantasy football. The man got slapped for it. So Tommy Pham's not one guy to mess with. But you're walking out of the dugout onto the outfield like shadow boxing. Well, you look like a loser. And what are we doing here? After they just hold him back, they're not going to play. Like, well, what are you trying to prove? Like, come on. You look like every fraternity dude in college getting hyped up to go out to the bars for an evening of drinking. Like, come on. What are we doing here? After you clearly started it. And then he goes out on Twitter, which this I found funny more so than anything. But he's making all these ridiculous, he's all of a sudden just like randomly like going off and like sparring with fans. He called the one guy out for like that criticizes him. He's like, hey, maybe you should have gotten into a better work, get off Twitter and work on your game more. You would have gotten a better college like me. This is just the whole thing was like, it was silly. It's like, Tommy, like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I don't give a shit. He talked about his political views. I don't give a shit about that. Whatever. I don't care who he's voting for as long as he's playing well. But like, it seemed a little unnecessary. And at a time where you were in the wrong in that situation. I'm sorry. Like the Contreras, I'm on their side for that one after watching the different angle of that play. So that was number one. Number two, coming off that play, we saw John Schriffen all fired up. And I'm a Schriffen defender. I defended him earlier. I like the fact that he cares about his job. He does. He wants his team to be well. He wants to be like, I think he does care. That said, you got to have a little situational awareness. You are the soundtrack for everyone's song. The team is not good. Everyone knows they are not good. Quit trying to deceive people into thinking we are watching a good team when we are not. When you have all this phony enthusiasm over a dog shit team in like minor moments, it turns a lot of people off, quite frankly. His whole thing where he came out was like, we seem to be catching teams at the wrong time. Really? Who are you trying to fool? We are not idiots. This is a smart fan base. It might be a small fan base, but it is a smart fan base. They know their baseball for the most part. We know this team's bad. At least Hawk Harrelson had earned the right to be a homer because he had been in baseball a long time. He'd been the general manager. He'd been connected to that team, and he was not afraid to call him out when they were playing poorly. Schriffen's got this like illusion, and like I said, and it's a tough job. I don't mean to like knock the guy. It is a tough job, and I do want him to succeed. I think he does have some talent. He's got a good voice, but like we got to dial it down a notch, man. Read the room. We know this team's bad. Quit trying to trick us into thinking it's not. The enthusiasm comes off phony. That whole like the whole we're catching teams at the wrong time is a joke. No, they're catching us because we fucking suck. That's what I mean. It is what it is. It's a bad team. And I get you're excited when they win. But also, too, with like, oh, we're not going to take that. We're not going to take that? Who is we? You're not part of this scuffle. Like, trying to insert himself into that, like that, I didn't understand that either. Now, I did like his Luis Robert home run, like, his home run call for Luis Robert, his return call. I thought that was a good call. So I don't totally hate Tripp. But there's a lot of times it's like, if you want White Sox fans to continue watching, it's not going to be for the product on the field. But if they feel like the broadcast is unlistenable, and they did a pull on Waddle and Sylvie, the majority of the fan base thinks they need a new broadcaster when they move to the next their new news network, when their Chicago sports network they're creating. Over 80% voted, yeah, they should switch the broadcaster. Well, if you're not going to be spending money to go watch this product on the field, the only other reason you're watching this team is for the love of baseball. And if you can't even watch these games because you don't enjoy the broadcast, you're going to lose a lot of fans very quickly. And I think he shot himself in the foot a little bit by picking a fight with the radio station because, unfortunately, 670 The Score, Waddle and Sylvie, Cap and Jay, like all these guys, ESPN 1000, they have been around in Chicago a lot longer than he has. And a lot of people listen to them on their commutes to and from work. So when you're the new guy coming in, and you have a lot of people that are still trying to form your opinions about you, Maybe the people that they're already listening to, who they've been listening to for years and have established some credibility in the city, might not be a bad idea to get on their good side. Come on the show. Help them talk positive, because when you got these shows ripping you, that's going to help form a lot of these other people's opinions. And he is not doing himself any favors. Some of these, it's just over enthusiastic at times. It comes off as, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of me when I was in high school and I was first starting to do play-by-play, and you wanted to be that edgy broadcaster that gets all of the crowd all excited. So you're going over the top on everything. You got to pick and choose your spots, because what's going to happen when this team is actually good and there actually is a big exciting moment? But we've been hearing this level of enthusiasm. Can he take it up a notch? I don't think so. So, like, then all of a sudden, it's not even going to be as exciting because he does it all the time for all these minor plays for a team that has 15 wins. I like him. I wish him well. But there's some stuff we got to clean up. That was a little embarrassing. Like, twice now. We've had, like, the Tommy Pham thing. We're not going to take that. Like, it just sounds, you sound like a doofus. And then, or catch your teams at the wrong time. It's like, even Steve Stone was like, you could tell he was like rolling his eyes. Like, really? Come on, man. Finally, here's what I want to talk about. I love White Sox fans. I like a lot of the people on White Sox Twitter. It is a great community. However, some of you at this Milwaukee tailgate this weekend really embarrassed yourselves. We made headlines across the city. We had NBC Sports Chicago talking about this too, because there's videos circling around. People in the parking lot before the game drinking Malort shots with cicadas in them. What the hell are we doing, people? It's bad enough the product on the field's an embarrassment. And I get you have to drink to watch this team. I completely understand that. But now we're putting cicadas in Malort shots. Malort's gross enough as it is. You can already thin paint with that thing. You want to do a Malort shot? That's fine. Why are we putting cicadas in them? What is wrong with you? If you were drinking a cicada Malort shot, you really need to look in the mirror and reevaluate your life. You know where those things come from? They spent 13 years in the ground, lying in the dirt, just so they can come up, fly around, and land on everything. Those things are touching everything. Their whole purpose in these couple weeks is just to reproduce. The cicadas are just a fuck machine. So they're flying around after spending their life in the dirt, flying around, touching all this stuff, reproducing with other cicadas, before you happen to catch one and you put it in your Malort shot, which is already gross enough. That is disgusting, people. Well, we don't need headlines for this. The White Sox already got enough bad publicity. We don't need this. What are we doing? What would I just drink a normal Malort shot? I get trying new things, but a cicada? Is there any nutritional value in a cicada? I don't think so. Even if there was, it's still gross. It can't taste good. Come on. If you drank a cicada Malort shot, and I like a lot of the fine people that did this, I wish you all well, but really, let's reevaluate ourselves here. We're drinking cicadas. That's gross. That's gross. I'm sorry. You got to draw a line somewhere. That is disgusting. That's all I got for you. Make sure tonight. So usually Pinwheels and I, they start at 8. Tonight, Zoe, Fids, they will be starting at 7 at the start of the Cubs Sox game. So you can kind of watch along with them. Fids knows his baseball really well. Zoe does too, but Fids, he always does good live breakdowns. You get some good strategy from him. And Zoe, he always has some great opinions too. So that should be a grand old time. So make sure you tune into that. I will be back next week at noon. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your week.